What is up, Hoof listeners? It's me, Anthony Romeo. This is the Hoof Podcast, week 17 of the NFL 2023 season. Can you believe it, folks? We're almost to the tail end, and there's still a lot to talk about with playoff races and seeding and all sorts of interesting, fun stuff. It's certainly been a fun tail end of the NFL season, especially. You'll notice that I'm flying solo today. Eric and I were both with family on Tuesday, so we didn't do a Tuesday episode. And unfortunately, now Eric is not feeling well. I'm a little stuffy myself, but still doing okay. But hopefully, we'll be back at it together next Tuesday to be able to recap week 17 for you. And again, a lot of good matchups this week. Week 16 was so exciting. Again, almost every game mattered in some way, shape, or form. I think only 2 games were between teams that were completely out of it or had no seeding implications or anything. That's an amazing slate for the NFL this late. And I think that bonus playoff game, that playoff spot, that seventh spot, the wild card spot, has really had a lot to do with it. And this is the first year we've really seen so much competitiveness down the stretch. It's only been a couple years of that extra spot, but yeah, it's certainly been a lot of fun to watch, and more matchups that matter this week. So I'll be going through the picks for each of these games with you to see, let you know what I think and give you my perspective. Obviously, it's just me flying solo, so you won't get Eric's pick for the week. But I'll still give you some feedback and commentary, as I always do with each of these games. And we try to go through it based on the time slot. Obviously, when we get to it, we'll focus a little more on our Buffalo Bills and the matchup there with the New England Patriots this week. But we didn't get a chance to talk about win in advance. The Bills are already in playoff mode, right? It doesn't matter how you win or what it takes to win, just win. And although that Chargers game was as ugly as could be, and a lot went wrong and everything seemed to go, not the way you had planned. It was not the butt whooping that I thought it should have been, especially with key players being out for the Chargers. But that I guess the fire your coach boost was in full effect, and 24-22 final. But hey, you do what it takes. You win, you advance. This is my perspective has changed over the week. I was frustrated watching that game in week 16 for Buffalo, saying like, what happened? We had all this momentum. We were playing so well. We're playing this dismantled team, and all of a sudden they look like champions. If you ask me, Stick had a better game than Josh Allen, which is saying something. We made him look like an amazing quarterback in only his second start. But then as the week went on, I thought to myself, if this were a playoff game, would I be caring about that? No, I would just be caring about, did the Bills win and find a way to win? And did they play good football? There was a lot of good to come out of that, and they won the game. That's what matters. If this was the Super Bowl, would anybody care that the final score was 24-22 and that we, barely beat an inferior team? No, we'd just be caring about the W. So that's what we need to focus on going forward, Bills Mafia. It was not a pretty game by any means, but a W is a W, and week 16 is in the books. Bills got a lot of help in terms of the wild card, but obviously the Dallas win over Miami was a big boost for Miami in terms of the race for the division. They now only need one of the games versus Baltimore or the Bills to clinch the division, and they automatically now have a playoff spot. So they are in. But lots of implications still, like I said, now moving to week 17. So let's get right into the slate of games and start discussing. The first one we have here is the Lions at the Cowboys, and Detroit is getting 4.5, and now it's up to like 5.5, I believe. This game is in Dallas. We know that defense is powerful, right? Dallas now a couple of disappointing games in a row here. What are they going to do moving forward? I think it's, with them, it's all about proving that they belong, right? We saw the game versus Miami, 2 teams that have only beaten a combined 1 team over 500 with 10 wins each. And now the other team has a win over them. But does that mean either of these teams are any good? Well, this is Dallas's chance to prove that. They're playing a Lions team that is clearly one of the top teams in the NFC. They've played inconsistent. They need to find consistency. But when they do, they are one of the best teams in the NFL. on both sides of the ball. So I think that this is a good challenge for both of these teams. This game is going to be very exciting to watch. Um, it's, the Lions saying, yes, we're a team to beat. We can win on the road. We can do this. We can be consistent. And Dallas saying, we are still the formidable team that, our defense and everything. It's not only, it wasn't a fluke. This is who we are. We are able to win. Dak was an MVP candidate for a reason. Offensively, they're powerful. And it's tough to believe either of these teams right now, even though both are going to be in the playoffs. What does that mean moving forward for them? And so this game has a lot of implications for seeding and for, respect going into the NFC playoffs of who's going to be the team to lose a home playoff game potentially, or be the team to make it to that NFC championship game. So I like this game a lot. It's a big one this weekend. Jared Goff and the run game in Detroit was really clicking in their last week. Dallas went toe-to-toe with Miami, but when all was said and done, they couldn't handle it at the end of the game, and they blew it, and Miami was able to kick a field goal for the win. So I think Dallas bounces back in this game. However, Detroit plus 4.5 or 5.5 now, that's too much. I think it's going to be a much closer game than that. So give me Dallas to win at home, but by a tight margin. So I'm taking the Lions with the points. Again, big matchup, one of the best of the weekend there. And then we move to a second game this weekend that has a lot of implications for it and meaningful, especially for our Buffalo Bills. And that is the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. If the Baltimore Ravens win this game, then assuming the Bills beat New England, Bills need to win, obviously. Then the division, the AFC East, is going to be on the line in Week 18. However, if Miami wins this game, then they have won the AFC East, and Week 18 will be a seeding game possibly for them, but bigger implications for Buffalo in terms of clinching a wild card spot. So the Bills are really rooting for Baltimore to win this game. What I do like about that is the Ravens are playing at home. Okay, so their defense has been very formidable. Their offense, we know what they can do. Lamar Jackson is a splash playmaker. He can do everything on all sides of the ball. Gotta love him. And at home, that defense, that crowd is going to be a benefit to them. On the other side, you have Tua and the Dolphins, who have played a little bit inconsistent as of late. They haven't been that 40-point dominating team or 70-point scoring team early in the season. Everybody was comparing them to the greatest show on turf. Now, all of a sudden, they look a little more grounded. But Raheem Mostert has really been a scoring machine for them, the running back. And, their Tua and the wide receivers have been able to get it done when needed to. However, Jalen Waddle, I believe he's going to be just announced today. He's out for that game. So that could have a huge impact on the Miami pass catching game when, that means more pressure on a guy like Tyreek Hill, who I don't believe is quite at 100% yet. He's recovering from an injury. He's out there. He's able to play, which is good. But, is he really at his peak level? Probably not at this point, from his recovery. So obvious, the Bills are really, really rooting for the Ravens to play their best football. They had a huge win in Week 16 over San Francisco on Monday Night Football. That was a heck of a game. Most people had San Francisco at home as a big advantage and a big favorite. And Baltimore basically stomped them. 4 interceptions for Brock Purdy, who was at the time the leading probably MVP candidate. And, now that might be put to rest. And maybe Lamar Jackson's in that conversation now. However, they have to, again, stay up and prove they still have a lot to play for. They're playing for that number 1 seed. This game, again, these top 2 have number 1 seed implications for their respective conferences. And this one, I think, for both games, the advantage goes to the home team, right? Dallas playing at home has the advantage. I picked them to win the game but lose in the spread. Here, I'm picking Baltimore to win the game and cover the spread. I think that 3.5 is just a little bit too much for me to try and lean away from picking Baltimore. I was just checking the updated lines, and it is still 3.5 at this point. So give me Baltimore with the points, and the Bills are strongly rooting for the Ravens to win this game. Don't blow it the way Dallas did, because Dallas really could have beat them last week and put them in a bad place coming into this one. But Miami, got to give them credit for finding a way to get it done, even when a lot of their guys are banged up. All right, so picking the Ravens there. Now we get to this Bills matchup. The New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. Again, the number one thing I like about this matchup is that it's in Buffalo. The Bills have played great at home this year. It seems like, having that loss to New England early in the season is going to give them extra motivation coming into this game. And again, the fact that it's at home, you're going to get their best. Huge news for the Bills coming out early today that Daquan Jones is indeed coming back. So that's, that's huge. And we'll see how that moves into the D-line rotation, how many snaps he plays, everything. He's coming off that huge injury early in the season. But he will be active for this game. And I expect him to get a good number of snaps. You're not going to put him fully out there, coming off injury. But that could have a huge impact for this D-line. We saw how Ed Oliver has been playing all year long. With Daquan next to him, he was a next level beast. So I think that combination is going to be great to see back on the field. And we're playing this New England team that has found a breath of life in the past couple of weeks here, really competing in games, winning games that most people did not think they were going to on the road versus Denver. Huge win last week to knock Denver out of it. And really, the Patriots are now out of the playoffs, but they are still looking like either they have something to play for, right? And Bailey Zappi bringing himself from the brink of, no, he's just a nobody, to, okay, he's formidable and playing consistent and not making the stupid mistakes. And, can he do that against the Buffalo defense in Buffalo? I'm not so sure I believe that, right? Can he? I'm not saying he's going to have a multiple turnover game, but that level of consistency against a much better team playing at home is going to be hard for him to maintain, right? He's found some sort of chemistry with guys like, Hunter Henry and some of the young receivers they have there. But I think that the Bills defense has been able to shut down or maintain or contain much better quarterbacks and opponents over the last few weeks than Bailey Zappi. Of course, that's exactly what we said going into the first matchup when they played Mac Jones, and we saw how that one went. Mac Jones looked like, he was the starting quarterback for the AFC in the conference game. So that's not the case, obviously. And Mac Jones ended up getting benched a few weeks later and multiple times until finally Zappi took over. But there's the Patriots team, although they've played inspired football of late, I still think on paper and overall, they are outmatched by this Buffalo Bills team. Defensively, the Bills are getting healthier. I'm not sure that Hyde, I believe Sean McDermott said Hyde could return for this game. However, AJ Epinesa, he just said, is trending in the right direction or whatever, which makes me believe he is not going to play yet this week, but will probably in the Miami game. And I think that's the right move in a lot of ways. You want to have everybody healthy going into that game that's really going to matter the most at the end of the season, that Week 18 Miami game, which could have huge implications. Again, the division could be on the line depending on that Baltimore outcome. So, yeah, the Bills are getting healthier on defense. The guys who were banged up are all now, I believe, let me double check the injury report, full participants with exception of Terrell Bernard, who was a limited participant, but is, I believe, expected to play. And Hyde, again, I think is still questionable, but possible to return in this game. And we saw, again, that Bills defense play well without so many of these starters. So getting guys back is really going to be, I think, an inspirational boost for that side of the ball. And then we could switch to the Bills offense. Patriots defense is definitely respectable. They have been all year. We know what they're capable of. Any Bill Belichick run defense is going to be, good, to say the least. Has it been enough for them? Not always. That's why they're out of the playoff race this year. And this Bills offense has been moving forward in a lot of ways, finding ways to win games. We've certainly seen that the pass game needs to improve, or is still improving, right? Stephon Diggs hasn't been getting going. We've talked about the inconsistencies of Gabe Davis. You can't trust or rely on him. He's either a boom or bust guy. The 12 personnel and what they've been able to do with the two tight ends, Knox and Kincaid, I really just want to see momentum. I want to see drives, long drives that score points, that just control the game. That's the Bills offense that I want to see. You don't need to get touchdowns every time. You can settle for field goals from now and then, but you have to maintain the pressure, keep that on, keep the timing control, right? Clock is going to be huge, and not give the Patriots any reason for momentum, right? Don't turn over the ball. You got to protect the ball. You're playing at home. Crowd's going to be on your side. Do what you can do on offense, and you should be able to, put a powerful lead ahead of this Patriots team, even if they are able to get something going on offense. I'm not expecting a shutout from the Bills defense. And the points here, we have to talk about this point spread, 13.5. To me, that's too much, right? The Bills have found a way to win games, have been consistent in winning games. This game is at home, which I think gives them a little boost. New England has been a little hotter than this lately, but 13.5 is just too much. I think the Bills win by at least 10, right? So if they give up 7, it's going to be, 17 easily, right? 17, 24 to 10, right? And that would cover the spread. But we can't rely on that, right? We've seen this Bills team do too much. If the Patriots are able to get 17 and it ends up 17 to 24 or 28, that doesn't cover, right? So you need more points in order to cover that 13.5 buffer. So I'm avoiding the point spread, although I think there's plenty of ways that the Bills should dominate this game, right? The score, it would not surprise me in this one if the Bills do run away with it and it ends up 38-6 or something. However, that's not my prediction for this game. It's a divisional game. You hear us talk about it all the time. Divisional opponents know each other so well. They've already played each other once this season. If anything, that's an advantage to the Patriots because that was when they had Mac Jones, and the Bills team is basically the same. Now the Bills have to game plan for a Bailey Zappi. So it's a little bit different look for them. And this divisional matchup, to have a 13.5 point line is just too much in my mind. Again, can the Bills cover it? Certainly. Should they? In my mind, absolutely. If you do what needs to be done, and at this point in the season, you have to do what needs to be done. But again, the motto and the mindset is win and advance. Just win this game. I don't care if it ends up being 21-17. Just win, right? We'd like to see the offense get things going, start clicking a little better in the pass game, balance the run and the pass a little more, right? We've seen the run game be dominant. We've seen the pass game do its thing, but we need to balance that a little more. And against the Patriots defense, that's not necessarily going to be, the easiest thing to do. I was expecting that more versus the Chargers, who have been a little beat up, and they weren't able to get that done. So ultimately, I'm picking Buffalo. I do think that Buffalo is capable of winning this game by a score of 10-24, which would cover the spread. However, I'm weary of that bet. So give me Buffalo, but be careful with that big number on the scoreboard there. Big, huge implications again. Even though New England is out of it, they're going to be giving their best because they know Buffalo's season is on the line here. And it's win in all scenarios. Basically, if the Bills win this game, they have many, many outs to clinch a playoff spot, which is not where we said 4 weeks ago. Remember, Eric and I were telling you, look, there's so many scenarios that need to play out before we know what's going to happen with this Bills team, before their fate is in their own hands, which is not where you want to ever be, right? You always want your fate in your hands. Now the Bills have that. They just need to win this game, and it pretty much guarantees them a playoff spot. There's a lot of scenarios. I think there's 17 different scenarios after that. But if they win, they advance. The division could be on the line next week, and that would be huge. So that's the goal, but you got to get it done, right? You got it done versus San Diego versus I keep calling them San Diego, even though they're LA now. The Chargers. You got it done versus the Chargers when it needed to be. Same mindset here. Just do what you need to do, win this game. And if you punch them in the face, that's a benefit. That's a boost in our favor just as much, right? So the more you do, the better, but just win, baby, and advance. All right, so let's move on. We've talked a little bit about this game now, and I've tried to cover both sides of the ball and the injury reports there. You can never trust a Bill Belichick injury report, so I don't know what to say about that. There's 20 guys listed as limited or probable, and we'll see who ends up playing. But ultimately, it's about the inspiration of trying to beat an opponent who's still in it for them, and you better believe you're still going to get the best from the Patriots. Okay, so moving on for real this time. We have other games that matter in the AFC. Again, here's a huge game with big implications here. The Raiders at the Colts. Both of these teams still in the hunt for the playoffs. The Raiders actually still in the hunt for the division after a huge victory over Kansas City where they dominated them from start to finish and really picked up the momentum there. Now they're playing an Indy team who is getting Michael Pittman back at wide receiver, is expected to play in this game. But still haven't seen enough from this Colts team to believe that they deserve to be in the playoffs. The Raiders are kind of fighting and clawing and showing, yes, we do. But the Colts, I'm still unsure of. However, this game is, again, how many times am I going to talk about home field advantage here? It is in Indianapolis. The Raiders are getting 3.5. To me, the Raiders win this game. They've been building momentum. They've been building chemistry with this team the way it is right now. They have playmakers. We know their running game. We know their pass game. We know the defense. The Raiders defense has been playing phenomenally over the past 4 weeks. And I really think that this matchup against Indy is favorable for the Raiders. So give me the Raiders plus 3.5 in this one at Indy. If Indy loses, I'm not sure if that keeps their playoffs hunt alive. But if the Raiders win, they could very well end up competing for, the division with the tiebreaker over Kansas City if Kansas City falters in both of their games. But we'll talk more about that in a second here coming up. So Indy and the Raiders, they both need this game bad. But I do think the advantage for me, even though the Vegas is getting plus 3.5, I'm taking the Raiders to win the game and with the points, obviously. All right, so moving on to another game with playoff implications here. So the Texans find themselves on the playoff bubble right now. However, they are supposedly getting C.J. Stroud back playing at starting, and they're also getting Nico Collins back, their number one wide receiver. This is going to be it's a phenomenal momentum changer for the Houston team, right? This Texans team is not the same without their star, rookie quarterback. He's been one of the most interesting stories in football in NFL this season. The way he's been able to play and carry that team and break some rookie records and all of that. And he certainly is a game changer for them. And especially when they're getting their receivers healthy again, their players are back. Dalton Schultz has been a big piece for them. I really think that they carry that momentum into this game. The Titans have been inconsistent. They've been able to beat some teams when they shouldn't. And I just think that, again, this Houston team, I know I've been high on them all year, but they are keeping themselves in the playoff conversation by, staying alive here. And they actually still have a shot at the division if things work out well, because of what's going on with Jacksonville and Indy as well. So we'll see how things go here, but give me the Texans with that offense back at high power, minus 4.5. I think they win by 10 points against a Tennessee team that has been good but inconsistent at times. So Houston plus or minus 4.5. So the other half of that matchup that matters for the AFC South here is the Jacksonville Jaguars playing at home against the Carolina Panthers. So Jacksonville is currently -6 in this game. Jacksonville has they've been trending downward in their last 4 games. I believe they're 0-4 to totally change their path from are they a number 1 seed to what is going to happen with this team moving forward. Are they going to even make the playoffs? They are now on the bubble of will they make the playoffs if they don't win the division, which is a tough place to be when a couple of weeks ago you were in the number 1 seed conversation. However, they do get a very friendly matchup here against the Carolina Panthers. I like Carolina's ability to, put points on the board. I don't think they're an opponent who is going to be shut out week after week. But man, it's like one thing after another with Carolina. They find ways to lose games. They turn over the ball. They make mistakes. They just are inferior roster-wise. And that's where I give the edge to Jacksonville. Although they have been losing momentum, although they have been not moving in the right direction and lost on opportunities that were in front of them, this one seems like a gimme, right? Like they should beat Carolina at home with their playoffs on the line, especially in the circumstances. It's been tough going for them with the injury to their starting quarterback, but still, you can't rely only on that, right? That although that is a big momentum changer, you are a team that's built on well-roundedness, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars have a good defensive line. They have good defense in general. They have, ability to run the ball. And that hasn't led to wins without, being full force at times. So they're kind of struggling at the wrong time of the season, but this favorable matchup I think is going to help them in getting to the playoffs. So give me the Jaguars -6 at home. I think they win by at least 8 to 10 points. All right, so moving on again to another matchup where, although the Cardinals are out of it, they've been playing opponents tough, and Philly now fighting for seeding implications as well. 10.5-point favorites for the Eagles at home. I think this is one they run away with, right? The Cardinals, although, again, they've looked better with Kyler Murray back, they're still one of, if not the weakest roster in the NFL overall. And a team like the Eagles has been able to pounce on that and really find a way to build momentum off of games like this. So if I'm in the Cowboys or another team competing for seeding like the Lions, this game is an unfortunate timing event for you because the Eagles should be able to find their footing and really put together a good overall game, both on both sides of the ball. Their defense is good, but has faltered at times. Their offense has had momentum. It always seems like the Eagles are playing one half of football. They play one half really well. Last week was the first half. They had a 17-point lead. They almost blow it versus the Giants. They find a way to win. You could say that about many other games this season. However, versus this Cardinals team, I fully expect that the Eagles are going to find a way to play 4 full quarters and dominate this game from start to finish. So give me Philly -10.5 at home. I think that's their statement game to start to clinch that number 1 seed. All right, so moving on. Again, the NFL, how do you do it? Every single one of these matchups matters right now, and that is just cash money in the pockets for the NFL, right? Here we go again, the Saints at the Bucks. Not the most exciting game in the weekend in terms of matchup, right? You're talking Baker Mayfield. You're talking a Saints team that hasn't been able to find its momentum with Derek Carr, that has been terribly inconsistent. However, the division is still up for grabs here, and this game is huge for both teams. The Bucks have really looked great the past couple of weeks, despite what their record says and who their quarterback is. They found ways to just get it done and try and advance. And the Saints, despite blowing a few big games, still find themselves in the hunt for the division. And this is a tough one for me to pick. It's at home for the Bucks, which again is a little bit of an advantage there. But you guys know I'm a Baker Mayfield hater. I just don't believe he has the X factor to get it done, and especially when it matters most. The Saints defense is formidable, despite having faltered in a couple of weeks. I think that the Saints find this opportunity and capitalize on it. So give me the Saints to win this game. Therefore, I'm taking them with the 2.5 points, even though the game is on the road at Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay has really been playing better football. The Saints have to find a way to get that run game going, to balance it with the pass. Olave's been huge for them, but Kamara, is inconsistent. They have the weapons necessary. They are the better team. That's why I'm picking them to win this game this late in the season. So give me the Saints minus or plus 2.5. All righty then. Now we have another game here. The San Francisco 49ers at the Washington football team here. This is a tough game to be Washington, right? You know that San Francisco just got punched in the face at home by a great team in the AFC, Baltimore Ravens. And now they're coming to your turf pissed off, right? So Washington has been playing inconsistent. They've been able to put points on the board, but faltered in the biggest moments and somehow still lost games by 10 points or more. And I think that continues here. Again, a tough week to be Washington. The 49ers are angry about that outcome and have a lot to prove. And I think they do that versus this Washington team on both sides of the ball. Their defense is not going to let Sam Howell have one of those 400 yards games. And their offense is going to dominate the way that they do. You expect from them. Run game, pass, opportunistic passing. Brock Purdy is going to have a much better game, in my mind, bounce back than that 4-interception game versus Baltimore. So give me the 49ers to win big here and possibly shut out the Washington football team here. So, yeah, give me the 49ers in this one. Still some implications, though, as the 49ers could be rooting and still fighting for that top seed in the NFC. All right, here we go with another matchup where I'm not sure. I think the Steelers are now on the bubble. They need a lot to happen for them to make the playoffs, but they're still there, not mathematically eliminated, I guess. And in the NFC, this race for those last 3 spots right now has the Seahawks in that 7 seed. So the Seahawks are in right now, but they find a tough draw here in a Steelers team that found a way to get points on the board last week, right? Well, who knew that the Steelers had an offense, but it came alive last week in a big way for them and kept them in the conversation at least. However, now they have to travel to Seattle across the country, playing a Seattle team that is very motivated and try and replicate what they were able to do last week. And I'm not sure they can do that. Steelers have a good defense. We know that. But the Seahawks have some of my favorite weapons in the NFL, both in the run game and the pass game. And I think that balance puts the Seahawks over the edge playing at home. So give me the Seahawks minus 3.5. I think they win this game big by 10 or more points against the Steelers team that was able to find life last week, but I think comes back down to reality in this tough matchup for them this week. So good on the Steelers for playing well, but tough matchup going to Seattle in a game that really matters for them. All right, moving on to the Bust Bowl, right? Here is one that not so much has implications. So far, the only game we've gone over that does not really have meaning in this week. So that is the Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers coming off that huge game against Buffalo that we talked about, where, Stick looked like he was all of a sudden a, starting quarterback. Was that Herbert out there? Let me double check my vision. No, that was Stick, right? So we'll see if he can stick to the program and play well in Denver, right? And the story this week with Denver is that they are ready to move on from Russell Wilson. He has a huge injury clause in his contract that if he gets hurt, I think it's like $35 million more is guaranteed of his contract. So they're benching him. They're saying, all right, we don't want you to get hurt. It's not worth the risk. We're going to put, Joe Schmoes out there and see what happens at home after getting punched in the face by the Patriots at home. Now we're playing a Chargers team that played inspired football under a new coach and is doing creative things and also has nothing to lose. So I actually like the Chargers in this game to win the game. They're getting 3.5 points. For that reason, you may see this pop up again in my pick 6. don't sleep on these games that don't matter, right? There's still money to be made here in picking the Chargers, but we'll talk more about that in my pick six segment. Bottom line is the Broncos have mailed it in completely this season. They're benching their quarterback. They are moving on from Russell Wilson likely in the offseason. And they're saying we're in a bit of a rebuild. It's better for us to lose these two games and get better draft seeding. So give me the Chargers to win and have some momentum coming into this game. And they're getting 3.5 points. So I like that. All right, a couple of more big matchups to get to. And our next one is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, Jamar Chase, what are you doing, buddy? You're really poking the bear on this one. This is the game with your backup quarterback and your playoff hopes on the line. You're going to poke the bear of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have not played good football down the stretch. They have not played good football. Their defense, although it has played well all year, has faltered over the last few weeks. Enough holes to where the other teams have been able to take advantage. Their offense looks completely lost at times. They have not been able. Pat Mahomes got dominated by the Raiders defense, couldn't find anything to get momentum going, was throwing the ball at anybody. It was an ugly game and has been an ugly few weeks for Pat Mahomes. I'd say the worst stretch of his career to this point. And you can blame the receivers all you want, but he's got to find a way to get it done too. There's a lot of blame to go around in Kansas City. But that puts me to the Bengals and saying, why wouldn't you just walk into this game and do what needs to be done and do what the Raiders did and say, yes, Kansas City's great, blah, blah, Super Bowl champs. Let everybody talk about them, but we're going to get our business done. Instead, Jamar Chase has to poke the bear and talk about how, the matchup versus the Chiefs and how they're not doing well and everything and give them bulletin board material. I don't like that. I just don't. So give me the Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs at home to win this game by more than 7 points because the Bengals started smack talking a little bit. Kansas City, I think, finds a way to win, especially at home after that humiliating loss last week. They have got to find some momentum before this playoff start, and this is a good way to do it. The Bengals, although they've been much better without Joe Burrow than a lot of people expected them to be. Their defense, their run game has been reliable. I think that, this is an opponent who is going to find a way to get the best of them. So give me Kansas City at home with the -7. I just think, again, it might be a fun game to watch, but Kansas City is going to pull it out by at least 10 points here. So Kansas City gets a win, a much needed one for them. And unfortunately, as I had mentioned earlier, that would mean they clinch the division and the Raiders could no longer topple them and kick them out of the playoffs, which would be a remarkable sight to see. So trust me, my rooting interests are with the Bengals. I would love to see the Bengals win this game and find a way to knock Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs out again. But I just think that with their coach, with their quarterback, with the talent they have, with the experience they have, they know what's at stake coming into this game, and they're going to find a way to get it done. So Kansas City all the way there. Yuck. It hurts to say that. Here we go with the last matchup that we have to talk about. Another one with huge playoff implications. There are still so many scenarios that matter in both of these conferences. Right now, the Vikings and the Packers are the 8 and 9 seeds in this NFC conference. So the Rams sit at 6 and the Bucks are at 4 currently, but obviously that could change too. And the 5 is the Cowboys, which is, at least where they're going to end up. So basically that top wild card seed is taken and there's 2 left. The Rams and Seahawks currently sit there. And the next 2 on that list are the Vikings and Packers. So if one of those 2 teams loses, then these 2 teams have the opportunity right in front of them as the last game of the week to put an emphasis on their playoff chances. Green Bay has been remarkably inconsistent all year. I've been using that word a lot for these teams, but we don't know who they are. Jordan Love is, played like a franchise quarterback at times, but also been susceptible to mistake plays and sacks and a bad offensive line and all that this season as well. And now they go into a tough place for them to play in Minnesota their divisional rival, as we've spoken about all the time, to a Vikings team that is also fighting for their playoff lives with a guy at quarterback now. They're making the change for the umpteenth time this season, it seems. They're going back to the rookie and playing at home. They have their wide receivers healthy. So I like their offensive weapons better than I like Green Bay's right now. It's just a tough matchup to pick here. That's why the line is only 1.5. Minnesota's playing at home. I think they win this game. I think they win it by 3 points. So that means I'm taking Minnesota minus 1.5. I do think this will be one of those games of the week, especially knowing the other outcomes. This is going to be huge for both of these teams to kind of say that they want to go into week 18 with at least a chance of becoming one of those wild card teams. So give me Minnesota. I think that they are going to play more inspired at home, and Green Bay has just been, remarkably inconsistent again with what they've been able to do on offense, even with Aaron Jones healthy. I give the advantage to Minnesota here. So that'll wrap up a huge slate of NFL games for week 17 of the NFL season. Can you believe it? Only a couple left here. This has been an unbelievable season so far, and there's still 2 weeks left, folks. It's great football down the stretch. I know I'm going to be enjoying every time slot of football and following all of these games. Remember, I'll be doing my Pick 6 segment coming up here. That'll be available. We've made money this season. We are at 60%, above 60% on the season with my Pick 6. That is a phenomenal place to be. But I still want to put more there, right? I want to go 6-0 these last 2 weeks going into playoff money, right? So let's continue to build there as well. But enjoy the playoffs matchups this week, the competitiveness for the playoff matchups this week. It feels like playoff football already in the NFL. I'm already there, apparently. For our Bills, obviously, it's win in advance. I don't care how ugly it is. Just win the game. Make it happen. You should dominate that team, but if you don't, you better realize just move on, healthy and forward. Let's keep going with that as well. And remember, you can catch Eric and I on Tuesday to do our recap, and next Thursday to make our final picks for Week 18 before moving into the playoff picture of both conferences. So lots of exciting stuff still to come. As always, thanks for kicking it with us.